Hey guys, what's up? This is Eric the Cosmic Wizard. Welcome back to Cosmic Tarot. So this morning I had gotten a channeled message download, right? And you know, I don't know how you feel about this or anything, but sometimes I feel like I just have to share certain things. This isn't like for any particular group, any zodiac sign or anything like that. I just want to read what I wrote down in my channeled message. You were made small to suppress your power so they wouldn't erupt too early. The lovers were only stepping stones because they couldn't come where you are going. Those that harmed you were reading from a script written long ago. You are always meant to be amazing. You were never those things that they told you. It's time to unleash your power and show the world that you have to start what you finish. So, I hope that resonated with you all, and I want to maybe break this down a little bit just to tell you what I think it means. So this message resonates with me particularly, and hopefully you all, because if you're like me, which I think you are if you subscribe to this channel and you like what I'm doing here, I feel like we are connecting here. You could have grew up feeling very overlooked for some reason, but in some ways you always had like this sense of feeling different, and you weren't sure if it was good or bad. Sometimes it was good, sometimes it was bad. You know, you didn't mind blending in sometimes, but also it would have been nice to have had, more attention. You were the kid who, maybe you ate lunch by yourself. Maybe you didn't have a lot of friends, and maybe that didn't bother you. Or maybe it did bother you, but you weren't willing to trade your authenticity to be around people who you didn't align with. I know for me, growing up, I moved a lot. I went to a lot of different schools. I was always the new kid, and it was difficult to make friends. I think in some regards, it was hard because I would push people away out of fear of moving again or not wanting to make friends. Hold on a second. Gotta turn this fan on me because it is hot. And if I turn that AC unit on, y'all gonna hear it, and I don't want y'all to hear that. I want y'all to hear me. And, I can relate to the kid who had to grow up really fast because of, turbulent home life or just immature parents or whatever you were dealing with as a kid. You may have seen some things that you weren't supposed to. I was born in the 90s, 91. So if you're like around my age, gentle parenting wasn't a thing yet. There was plenty of ass whoopings in the grocery stores when I was a little boy. There were plenty of meltdowns at KB Toys. There was a lot of Toys R Us toys that got put back on the shelf, don't even look at the Toys R Us. We going to Walmart, and you better not motherfucking leave this cart. Better put right, you know what I mean? So you grew up a lot differently than how you probably raise your kids if you have kids. I don't have kids, but if you have kids, then you probably are someone who you're big on making sure your kid feels seen. You're making sure that your kid feels loved, because you may have grew up not really feeling unconditional love. And it's not like anyone ever, or in my case, no one was explicitly, for the most part, overly cruel. It was just overlooked. There was always, I just didn't feel like I was always a priority. I kind of wanted attention, and sometimes I would fuss to make sure I get what I wanted, but I feel like you were somebody who, you were shrank, and maybe people would tell you, oh, don't do this, don't do that. They would try to limit you, kind of like Saturn energy. Saturn is the planet of restrictions, right? And I feel like the reason why you were restricted was because maybe not consciously, but there's something about you that you carry this very old divine power within you. You may be spiritually gifted. When I was a kid, I'd have like the craziest dreams. I would see, things in the shadow. And I remember being very scared. And I remember telling my, my grandma, and she would just say, "Oh, plead the blood of Jesus, plead the blood of Jesus. That's just the devil trying to get with you or whatever." And like, I told your mama not to cook pork late at night. It was, what I mean? You ever had if you have a black grandma, they say like the weirdest things, like, you can't see. That's because you ate chicken on Tuesday, and that's why. Or, oh, you can't eat pork after 8. You're gonna have bad dreams. Like, oh, I had a dream about fish. Somebody pregnant. You know what I mean? Like that's that kind of stuff. So you could have grew up in a very superstitious household where maybe your spiritual gifts were seen as evil or demonic. I know, tarot was something that was not allowed as a kid. It was seen as demonic. And I remember I had like a tarot card deck, and my other grandma found it, the one who I think is the suppressor. Or no, they both, in some sort of way, everybody in my family was kind of part of it, right? They were following that script. And basically I was, kind of like repressed from using these gifts or learning them until now. Because if I had focused when I was younger, I wouldn't have been able to control it. I wouldn't be able to use it. There's like, in my opinion, and I can't prove, there's a lot of people who we call like, schizophrenic, or I forget the correct term for I know it's not bipolar. I think it's manic depressive or something like that or whatever. But those people, they have a connection that has been taken from them, that's been dwindled. It's been hijacked by, people who may not understand it. They call them crazy. They get them on medicine, and then maybe, and I'm not saying there aren't people who do need medicine. I'm not saying don't, take medicine or anything like that. And I'm not trying to offend anybody. That's just something that I question and think about. So please don't take my comments to be directly related to your experience or anyone that you love. These are just my opinions. This is my YouTube channel where I'm allowed to voice my opinions. And if you have a opinion that's different from mine, then we can have a respectful conversation about it in the comments. I'm open for that. Emphasis on respectful conversation. So you could just have always felt like you were supposed to do something great, and maybe you didn't know what it was. You couldn't put your thumb on it, but you knew that you would be different, and you dare not say it out loud because you didn't want to get laughed at. You didn't want to tell people, "Oh, I want to be a famous, singer, or I want to be an actor," or whatever it is. You've always had this desire, or you've always wanted fame, maybe, or you weren't afraid to be who you were because people try to tell you that who you were was like not good. Yeah. And the 8 of Swords, you see through illusions really well. Like nothing seems to faze you anymore. You don't get surprised when people go ghost. Hold on one second. When people go ghost, when people, start to change up on you, it's almost as if your predictions came true, right? The things that you thought were going to happen, they always happen. You may have had psychic dreams, prophetic dreams. You may have had like this odd, like really good luck where you can't explain it, but you felt like there were situations or instances where like, man, I should be dead, but like out of nowhere, like the truck turned or whatever happened. There could have been near-death experiences. You're somebody who's meant to be here, and everyone's supposed to be here, but you may have tried to check out and you weren't allowed to. I remember one instance for me after after one of my best friends and fraternity brothers was passed away in a car accident. And I think I can't remember if it was before or after my grandma. My grandma and him, they died like 2.5, 3 months apart. And I just remember it was snowing, and I was like in the express lane, and the car had started to kind of like slide on the ice, and it was like headed toward the median. And I remember I just took my hand off the wheel, and I was just like, if I go, I go. I don't like. I was so, I don't know why. I think I was just. I mean, I was really depressed. My grandma was like my best friend too. So I had lost two really significant people in my life who I just knew would be there for me in a very critical moment. I had just graduated from college, and when there's a lot of changes that happen to me, I kind of go through like this depressive thing I've noticed. Even when I moved in here, I just moved into this new place. I got a new job. I left my old job, and I'm still mourning those things because those were really close to my heart. And these people were really close to my heart. And, you know, I had a really bad drinking problem. I still kind of struggle now and there with it. And I just was tired. And I've never really felt, you know, like I wanted to check out before, you know what I mean? But I was like, this is my time to go, whatever, fuck it. And out of nowhere, like the will just, it was like this, like just corrected itself. And I was like, fuck, I guess I'll just live then. And I just kept going. And it was almost like that split second of like, fuck it. Like, you know, you got to keep going. You can't stop. And, you know, that was the sign that I needed to keep going. Maybe you have experienced like those type of things where you can't really explain what happened. Maybe it was just who knows, you know what I mean? It doesn't necessarily be like anything like big, like, you know, guardian angel fell from heaven and like crashed through the window and took the wheel. And, you know, when it comes to lovers, we're always, some lovers, the lovers were only stepping stones because they couldn't come where you are going. So, you know, if you've had a lot of experiences where, like, you know, it just never seemed to work out in these relationships, and you always found yourself feeling left behind or not picked, or the people that you were interested in, it just never seemed to link up, or you were kind of too much for people sometimes. People may feel like you, because of your personality, you may be over the top, or you may be uncontrollable. You know, they want people who are more predictable. Maybe you live a very unpredictable life. They want a partner who is going to, you know, do a very routine life. And maybe routine just isn't that for you. You know, I've always had trouble, you know, with routine, even waking up at the same time, you know, eating consistent breakfasts or whatever. And some people, they wake up at 7:30, they go to the gym by 9, and they're at work by 10 or whatever time. I don't know what time y'all go to work, but you know what I mean? Like, they have a very predictable schedule. You know, some people, okay, well, it's 7 o'clock. I know they're at the gym right now because it's Tuesday. And, you know, some people like that. Maybe you weren't. They can never pin you down. They could never figure out, you know, how you felt, where you were doing, how you acted. You probably overcome obstacles really quickly. You may feel like you have a innate need to want to solve and fix people, fix their problems. And people may see you as someone who doesn't struggle with problems, even though you do. Like, you totally do. Like, you really fucking struggle. But you don't. It's like the way you struggle with class. You struggle with pride. You struggle with this unwavering conviction of, I know I'm going to be okay. And you may feel a connection to archangels. Mine in particular, Archangel Michael, Archangel Gabriel. Those are two that I really connect with. You may be a loyal, diehard friend when it comes to the people you love. You have a certain way about you that is just unlike most people. And people, they love it, and those that hate it are mad because they can't take it from you, they can't mimic it, they can't duplicate it, and their energy, it gives you this ick feeling, so you naturally like don't like them, or you don't want to be around them. You're not the kind of person that just like, oh, fuck that person, I fucking hate that bitch, like there may be like 10 people that you just cannot fucking be around, but most people you could at least tolerate. But there's probably like a handful of people you're just like, ugh. And those people are like, they hate you because they can't be your friend. You know, most people don't like you because they can't be your friend, or because you left them behind. It's not because you're a malicious person. It's not because you step on people's toes. And, you know, even if you did, it was not on purpose. Sometimes we accidentally fuck people over. You know what I mean? Like, we're not always conscious of, like, you know, how our actions affect every single fucking person. And especially when you're younger, you don't have the foresight to know, you know, how to always make the best decisions. Sometimes people accidentally get hurt in situations, but you don't try to hurt people, but you can move on pretty quickly. Those that harmed you were reading from a script written long ago. So what I mean by this is, you know, the people in your life who have harmed you, these were contracts that may have been written on the other side, where you all agreed to play these parts. You know, you could have a mother who suppresses your emotions, and that is, you know, something that was predetermined on the other side before you crossed over, and there was a lesson behind it. And I'm not going to go into the specifics of like what each lesson is when people do this, or what they you can tell who and who isn't a karmic or a lesson in your life. You're pretty good at discerning who you should and shouldn't be around. You know, you may not feel like you follow your intuition, but you secretly are, and sometimes doubting it is part of what's the word I'm looking for? It's part of strengthening it. It's challenging it, or sharpening it. There we go. Yeah. So you're somebody who is highly divine, highly gifted. I mean, we're all divine creatures, right? You're just someone who knows that. You know, you may not have always been able to put it in words or put your finger on it, but, you know, people probably stare at you in public and you don't know why, and you honestly probably don't even care, but you just keep doing your thing. You know, you could be a lone wolf, or you could be a socialite. You know what I mean? You do what you want to do, and not many people do that. Not many people live a full, authentic life. You know, you don't want to be tied down to a job or a corporation or anything like that that doesn't align with your values. You're a very intentional person. You're a very, you know, loyal person. Brand loyalty is important to you. You know, I wear Nikes, okay? I don't wear Adidas. I don't wear Felines. I don't wear Champs. I don't wear K-Swisses. I don't wear Skechers. I don't wear New Balances. I wear Nike. And then, you know, whatever look, flip-flops, I don't give a shit about them. You know what I mean? I don't care about that. But like for tennis shoes, I want Nike. So that could be you. You could be somebody who is just an all-around good person, and you don't wish harm on people, even those that wish harm on you, because you know the spiritual karmic or karma of wishing poor on people, right? Someone's talking shit on me. It's okay, baby. I still love you. Go ahead and dislike. And there could be people that hate watch you. There may be people who are watching to see you fall. You know what I mean? And a view is a view. So thank you. And, you know, watch all the way till the end. Subscribe. I feel like you're somebody who you tend to recognize negativity, and some people think that because you recognize negative things that makes you a negative person. But no, you're someone who's not afraid to see and say what it is that a lot of people are afraid to say. And because we live in this culture now, I don't even say now, but some people, controlling, manipulative people, feed and I was looking for. They really like not dwell, what's the word? They do well in environments where people stick their head in the sand and they don't say what's wrong. You know what I mean? If you have a narcissistic boss, they love people who aren't challenging them. They love workers who don't question authority. They love people who just, I'm just here to do my job and I'm not going to get involved. You know what I mean? And I always, that whole culture of like your coworkers are not your friends, for me, I disagree with that, because if I'm spending 40 plus hours in an environment with somebody, I would like to be, fairly cordial, at least friendly with these people. I mean, for me, it's just naturally, like, how can you spend all this time with people and you don't have a friend at all? Like, I was a teacher for 10 years and I would go out and I would be in the hallway on my planning period and I would just go to each teacher and just bother them and talk to them and just strike up a conversation. Some people were open to it, some people weren't. I was just like that person. I just, hey, how are you doing today? What's going on? Oh, what y'all doing in here? Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? You just talk about work stuff. I wasn't like, ooh, I don't want to talk to them because they're going to try to take my job. Bitch, I don't even want this job. You ain't going to take something I don't want. You don't have a fear-based consciousness. You're not in that fear-based conscious group that is always looking over their shoulder like, you know that what's for you is for you. And if something is, not happening, if something is not, coming towards you, then that means it's not for you. And you just have to keep moving. Yeah, it sucks sometimes when the person you like doesn't like you back. Well, that person is not in alignment with you. That's not your person. You have to just believe that there's someone more aligned with you. So the people who are here, who were suppressing you, they're just reading off a script. Don't take it personal. You know what I mean? This life is just a experience. We have millions of experiences as source creators, as source creation, right? All of us are a fractal of true source energy, and we're all experiencing the totality of reality in a very unique perspective. So I don't want to be with somebody who doesn't see the God in me the way I see the God in them. And until I find that person, I'm just going to have to keep it moving. And you're going to have to be the same way, because you are, I don't like this term, but I'll say it because I need to build you all up. You're a chosen one. Maybe you're a light worker or a dark empath or a shadow worker, whatever. To me, a lot of that shit's spiritual bypassing or spiritual ego. We get caught up in this need to identify, oh, I'm a Pleiadian or I'm a starseed from October. Those are all what starseed are you? I can see the Instagram quiz pop up right now. Who cares? Helping your fellow mankind is, who cares? Just help people, be good. Make the world a better place. That's all you want to do anyway. That's literally all you want to do is help people. You want to alleviate the suffering in this world. Not because it will make you, better. I mean, that's a byproduct of it. but because you just feel this calling to be of service. You may be in hospitality or service industries, teaching, nursing, EMT, paramedic, police officers, good ones. There's good police officers. Let's not act, okay, y'all. There's good everybody in this world. Let's not act like there's good teachers, there's bad teachers, there's good politicians somewhere, and there's bad politicians everywhere. There's good rich people, there's terrible rich people, there's really shitty homeless people, and there's really awesome, amazing, I would love to be your friend, fucking homeless people or unhoused people. You know what I mean? Whatever. There's good and bad of everything, and you're not somebody who is above or below anybody. You don't walk into the room and feel any less than a millionaire, and you aren't better than the man living in a tent off the side of the freeway. You treat both people the same. And not just because, that's what people say. Like, no, like, you do that shit in privacy. You don't need to post pictures of you doing charitable deeds, or you need to talk and brag about all the things that you do, or you need to be seen publicly. You just do things because it's the right fucking thing to do. You don't have to, share it with the world. I mean, I guess I kind of am with my YouTube channel, so. But you know what I mean, right? You get what I mean? This is a little different than that. You were made small to wait to this very moment when you would be able to truly embrace your gifts, when you would be in a place where negative spirits, entities would be less of a mitigating factor. I think a lot of times, a lot of the people who are, like I said earlier, sometimes they may have there's some harmful ass shit out here, okay? Not everybody is blessed and coated in the light. There's a lot of darkness. There's a lot of people that like the darkness. There's a lot of reasons why this earth has been the way it has been for a very long time. And, in some spiritual communities, in my opinion, they like to shy away from these topics because they aren't lucrative. They make people feel scared. They make people feel nervous. And if people feel nervous, they're not going to click on the videos. They're not going to buy my products. They're not going to pay for my $200 weekend. I'm sorry, that's really cheap. My $2,500 weekend in Sedona, where they get a let me stop. Because I don't even know nobody who do that personally. But I really, and this is more like me just talking now and explaining this, but I really side eye, and I have to really listen to the people who do these retreats, because I'm not saying that they're full of shit, but I feel like a lot of I don't see how just having a fucking breakfast in the woods is empowerment. I just don't fucking know. What is an empowerment breakfast? You have to explain that shit to me, because how is eating pancakes and sausage empowering? Are there some speeches? Are there some presentations? What are we talking about? What are we doing? Are we doing some real healing? Or what are the topics? Let's have a men's group where men get together and we talk about what it's like to not process our emotions, or be living in a society that tells you that if you feel compassion, that makes you weak. Or even hell, people who you ever just meet these this thuggish hood culture where they don't say excuse me. It's just, hey dog, hey, what happened to excuse me? Hey, excuse me, I need to get through. Or it's the way that people, I had this neighbor, and he, the way he would communicate with me, it felt very disrespectful. Instead of being I'm sorry to bother you, I'm working on my car and I don't have the right kind of screwdriver. Do you possibly have a flathead that I could borrow? It would be, hey, let me see a flathead screwdriver. And I would be like, All right, let me go see if I have one. But I really want to be like, nigga, that's not how you ask for shit. Like, who the fuck raised you or who didn't raise you? Because, excuse me, but you know what I mean? It was just like, it was too much for you to humble yourself, like as if it was humbling to say, can I please borrow something? But those kind of people who are afraid of, I guess, for some reason they feel it as being like invalidating of their manhood or whatever, they lose a lot of opportunities because people don't like shit like that. I'll never forget the day we were at the fraternity house, and it was like the new recruiter, like the new recruits were coming around, and this one kid, you know, we were handing out, you know, beers and shit. Well, I wasn't handing out beers or nothing, but there were beers and stuff. And this kid just grabs one. He just didn't ask. He just, oh, I'll take one of those. And, you know, all the actors are just kind of like, you know, we're like looking around. We're noticing who acts and what the social cues and stuff. And that action right there made such an impact on a lot of other people that he didn't even know. And he had an uphill battle with getting people to be on board with him. And I'm in my mind like, had you had came into this house and maybe had been more respectful, and maybe he didn't mean anything by it. I don't think he did, right? But just that level of not wanting, your ego is so bruised, it's so fragile that saying please, thank you, apologizing, just, I would like to have more conversations about why we as men can't be more vulnerable and why we see vulnerability as a weakness when it's really strength. Okay? So maybe you're somebody who wants to actually do enrichment things like that and not just put on smoke and mirror shows and call it empowerment. And there's a lot of people in the spiritual community who do shit like that. There's a lot of people, you know. So I don't want to turn anybody off to, like, you know, being a spiritual coach. I think that's a really good job. I think there's more good than bad people, but you have to be careful and you have to discern that shit on your own, you know. And the last part, you know, you have to start what you finish. You're here to break generational curses. You're here to uplift the world. You're here to be a global impact. Even if you don't even realize it, even if you change one person's life, that is a fucking awesome thing. And I think we all are changing people's lives in different ways, and some for the positive, some for the non. But there's something about you that makes you unforgettable. And right now you're probably becoming someone that is unrecognizable by those. You may feel like this natural separation from people in your life from the past. Maybe some friends start to feel less important. They could feel less present. You may be more introverted. You may be more turning into somebody who is okay with being in their own space alone. Or you're not needing outside validation to prove that you're worthy. You're owning your shit, the good, the bad, the in-between. You're somebody who isn't afraid to take a chance on something. You're not a person who's afraid to get out of a situation that's unfavorable before you get stuck in it. You're not going to sit and wait something out until it gets better. You're going to get your ass out of that situation before you get stuck, because there's more than one way to skin a cat. You don't believe in being stuck in a job. You don't believe in being stuck in a relationship. You don't believe in putting up with disrespect from people, anybody, mama, daddy, brother, sister, cousin, grandma, auntie, anybody. And you don't have to be disrespectful back. As a matter of fact, you don't care if people respect you or not, because you respect yourself. And so you simply choosing to not engage with people shows how much respect you have for yourself, because you're not even, and it's going to piss a lot of people off. There are going to be people who are going to want to poke you. They're going to want to try you. They're going to want to see you get angry. They're going to want to see you explode. They're going to want to get a reaction out of you, because if they can get a reaction out of you, that means that they can control you. They can manipulate you. And nobody, in my opinion, the people who can make you the angriest are the people who know you the best, right? And I came from a family where they would say really low, just really bad things, right? And they knew what to say to make you upset, right? They would go for the jugular. You don't do that anymore. You may have been taught to do that, maybe not directly because you saw people do it, then you picked it up. You are somebody who understands the weight of the words that you say, and that words carry energy, and energy is going to create some type of emotion, and emotions are going to create some type of action, and you want to be very deliberate with your actions and your thoughts and your emotions, because you're somebody who has self-mastery. You are in control of you, and that scares the shit out of people, because we live in a highly reactive world, a very volatile world, where people are turning on each other for fucking $5. You got companies that make more money than they'll ever need for their CEOs, and they completely shit on the workers. They shit on certain groups of people, and we are starting to see those companies, collapse. We're starting to see these governments, these politicians, these parties, these entities employed on themselves because of their negativity, because of their disingenuous way of conducting themselves. We're living in a world we're living in the age of Aquarius, right? The age of the healer, of the water bearer. This is the age of the humanitarianism. Okay? This is true. Yes, this is known. I think you need to understand that you carry within you something that, in my opinion, everyone has the ability to access, but very few are willing to erase the script that they've been handed, And I think that you said, fuck this script, fuck this life, this script that you gave yourself, where you said, I'm going to be for an example, I'm going to be a teacher probably for the rest of my life, and I'm just going to have to, deal with what teachers deal with, and I may not like it, but this is the lane I've chosen. That was a thought that I had. And I was like, this is probably what I'm going to do. Like, I went to college for this. I have a master's in this. Like, I have so many student loans because of this. How would I just stop doing this to go make YouTube videos in my apartment? How is a YouTube channel with 1,000 subscribers going to keep me going? Well, it's 1,000 today. It may be 20,000 next week, 50,000 in a month. It may be 2,000 in a month or 2 months. It'll grow when it needs to. I'm not forcing anything. I'm in flow. I'm sitting here right now in flow, just spitting off my mind. I'm not even really looking at anything. I do sometimes pull up that channeled message just to see where I'm at. But I think I'm at the end. Yeah. You were never those things that they told you. Whatever your mind, the critical mind in your brain tells you, just acknowledge it. Don't try to fight it, and don't buy into it. Just let it be a rolling thought. Kind of like a sunny day with clouds. Every now and then, a cloud will get in front of the sun, and it'll just get a little dim for like a few seconds, and then the cloud will pass away or pass by. That's all a negative thought is. No need to latch onto it. No need to agree with it. No need to fight it. It's time to unleash your power and show the world that you have to start what you finish. You do. You're here to break some cycles, dude. Aquarius is rebellious energy, okay? So you're not going to do this, oh, well, we got to be all love and light. Like, no, sometimes you have to break a few eggs to make an omelet. Isn't that what they say? And there's a way, you're very crafty in how you approach situations, very delicately. You don't have to be crude or crass to get your point across. You don't have to be, overly selling yourself. Some people really like put on like this very fake, like big chipper, like, hey, how you doing? And it's like, you don't have to do all that. Just be you. Like, that shit turns people off more than it really helps, and like, how many fucking people I am so sick of these, of all the ads of just like people just being half naked, selling their bodies to get likes and views. And I guess, you're more likely to click on a video of a really, good looking, hot, person versus a more average, normal person. But I think that we're starting to see through the bullshit that a lot of these, influencer people with all these 20 million subscribers, they're just all posers, man. And like, who fucking cares that you got a Lambo? Who fucking cares that you have an 8-bedroom house? Who fucking cares? Why do you care? Why do you need all that shit? How does that make you happy? How many people have you helped today? How many positive comments are you replying to on your posts? How is a Takedown T page helping our community? I'm not trying to talk down on people or anything. I just think you're somebody who sees through the bullshit. You see through the distractions. Sometimes it's fun. Hell, I love true crime. I want to listen to fucking Wendy Alderson or all that bullshit. That's crazy. I've been obsessed with Sarah Boone's fucking trial for like the last 2 years. Daryl Brooks is a fucking that dude. You know what I mean? Like, this shit's fun. It's fun to watch that shit. But it's a distraction. That designer clothes and name brands and fancy, expensive shit doesn't make you better than anybody. But, I do like my Nike shoes. I think they have a good quality to them, I think they do. I just think they do. Some things are better quality. But I don't think that a $20 Nike shirt is better than an $8, Goodfellow from Target. They both do the same thing. This is probably like, where is this from? Probably from from Target, yeah. I like this one. It's one of my favorite sweaters. It's like 85 degrees outside, but I'm inside, so fuck it. It's cold in my house. You know why? Because I can pay my bills because I'm not spending on a Gucci belt. That shit doesn't make me happy. It probably doesn't make you happy either. You don't need to impress anybody, And I remember being in my 20s, and then, I started getting my first big boy job as a teacher, right? So you're making $45,000, $50,000 a year, and you're like 20-some years old, which isn't a lot of money. Depending on where you are, that's like nothing. But where I was, it was okay, you know what I mean? And, you start seeing people driving these bigger cars. And I'm like, okay. I almost got into like that, that keeping up with the Joneses type of lifestyle where you're, oh man, well, I want a new, Kia, blah, 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 or the new Highlander. Why? Why do you need a Highlander? Why do you need an Outback? Why do you need a Santa Fe? Why do you need any of those things? Is that going to make you happier? Your car's paid off. It has a little scratch in it. It has 100,000 miles on it. You don't need a new car. There's nothing wrong with it. You take pretty good care of it. It's good on gas. It's just you. You know, sometimes people's appearances don't match their financial standing. And sometimes there's a lot of people who, you know, they don't look like they're doing too well, but they're not living paycheck to paycheck. They're not, you know, squeezing every little dollar and nickel just to keep up, working 2 or 3 jobs. You know, you value what's important, and that's your time, your respect, your self-respect, because that's the only person whose respect should matter, is yourself. And if you respect yourself, you'll treat people so differently. And you can always tell someone who doesn't respect themselves, you know, because in my mind, now, do I ever lose sight of the bigger picture? Hell yeah. Do I ever pop off and get crazy? Hell yeah. I'm still human. I'm not holier than anybody. I'm not sitting there pontificating as if I am above everything. I just know that there is a higher way to do things. And, you know, it's okay to not always be okay. I suffer from, you know, having depressive thoughts and energies sometimes. Maybe you do as well, but you transmute it, you alchemize it. You may be a healer. People may come to you with all their problems, and you just somehow know what to say, but when you need help, there's no one ever around to tell you anything. You ever experienced that? I have. I just think you're a really special person. And I think the world is so much kinder and so much softer and so much gentler and so much lighter with you in it. And I hope you enjoy this message. I hope you find value in what I'm saying to you. And I love you. And I hope you have a wonderful day. And make sure you like and subscribe. And let's get this shit, all right? Have a good one. Bye.